We are all in situations where we live in a whirlwind of activities that is difficult to tame. They come at us awfully fast, and we have to set some priorities. And when I talk to people and ask them what's important, they are usually able to tell me, but they often list far too many things. It's interesting to me that the word priority was always a singular word. Ever since it first began to be used for hundreds and hundreds of years, if you said priority, you meant that one thing. Then in basically the late 1800s, early 1900s, it began to be used a little differently and quickly began to be plural. And now, I don't know about you, how many of you are in organizations that you prioritize, but it's like you never get past number one? Right? It's the main thing is this, and number one, and don't forget, it's like we just start numbering laterally, right? And they all stay at the top level of importance. That's not prioritizing. And so if you're giving direction to people, you have to get a lot more brutal about your prioritizing that. Let me give you an idea of what this looks like. In that whirlwind that you're experiencing, you've got all sorts of things coming at you, all sorts of things that could take your time and attention and the time and attention of your people. For lack of any better way to put it, I'm going to say it looks like this. Okay, these are all the little particles of that. You've got all sorts of things. And the truth is, one of the first decisions that you have to make about your time and your resources and where you're going to steer these things is not to waste it on unimportant things, right? All right, so that's a hard decision for many of us, but we manage to master that and we get rid of all the unimportant things in the mix. It looks something like this, and that may be hard enough, but we're left with this, and these are all good and important things now, but there are still far too many of them. By the time we spread ourselves across this, we are not going to accomplish anything. We have to get even more brutal, and this is where people really fall apart, because it's one thing to identify what are the good and important things as opposed to the bad things and the unnecessary things. But when I ask them, hey, which of these things are more important than the other things, that gets pretty tough. Like, what if I wanted to choose just a few of these good, important things and say these are the most important things that we're going to focus on? It's one thing even to name those, but in practice, when we elevate those, we actually de-elevate these other things, and this is where it gets hard, right? Because in our experience, it feels like we're saying these good and important things aren't. But this is what real leadership is about. This is what it means to give people clear direction. It means to discuss not just all the good and important things, but to tell them, hey, when this good and important thing collides with this good and important thing, I want you to choose this one. When we have a hard choice of what will we advance and what will not be accomplished, it's going to be this one. And this is where it gets hard. We're going to say, wait a minute, that means we're not going to advance this good and important thing? Yeah, that does mean that. And that's really tough because, look, when it tanks, another very technical term, when it doesn't get done or it doesn't get done well enough, since it's good and important, there's going to be some pain. There's going to be some difficulty or some hardship because it was genuinely good and important. But we're never going to advance if we keep spreading ourselves across this. We have to de-emphasize some of these in the favor of others. That's tremendously difficult for leaders and even harder when it comes to your ability to communicate that to those you lead so that they can make similar choices. But if you want them to be accountable, if you want them to step up, they have to have a clearer and clearer direction.